Well, it's set up, but of course, we don't control it directly.
You have a closing on Friday?
I do. Actually, I have two.
All right, I think we're all here. Welcome to Town Hall. Teresa, could you start us off with attendance, please?
Sure. This is the workshop meeting of Tuesday, June 7th, 2016. On a roll call, Councilman Troy,
Present.
Councilman Divany, Councilman Valentine, Councilman Batari,
Here.
Supervisor Stewart.
Here.
I ask that everyone stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Teresa. Once again, welcome to Town Hall. It's a workshop meeting reviewing our agenda for next week when we'll have our regular town board meeting, which will start at 7:30 p.m. with public comment. There's also a public hearing next week related to town parks policy and other items that we'll go through shortly. Just a quick announcement, the Camp Shanks Museum is open every weekend this summer from noon to 4 by veterans who are volunteering to keep it open as they do every summer, so please go support that. And the first item on our agenda tonight, just for a quick review, is our public hearing, continuing the public hearing on the town parks policy. And of course, any one of these items, if the town board wants to discuss it a little bit, we could do that. Any discussion? I'll just say, for my part, we've received memos from our park superintendent with some suggestions about how to write that policy, some information about what it might cost, and some information about how the implementation, or in practical terms, how his office would handle it. And that all the town board members have received that internal memo, and it's certainly food for thought. I think he put good work into it, and that's probably what we should be discussing.
Yeah, I just want to thank Eric, who's the Superintendent of Parks and Recreation, for the time he put into this. You know, it's something that's definitely needed, and I appreciate the thought that he put into coming up with the proposed policy. And again, I'm sure there'll be more discussions on it. I've talked to a lot of people about it. Most people are in favor of it, and there's some that have various changes they want, some just out-and-out objections, but in general, the majority of the people I've talked to are very favorable to this.
Yeah, I think there seems to be unanimity of purpose, but it being somewhat of a complicated undertaking, I think there's going to be a lot of kind of ideas about how best to go about making sure that our parks prioritize town resident use and don't get overwhelmed at peak periods by non-resident use. I guess one question that I have for the members here is you know, given the sort of new information and ideas that are coming in all the time, you know, how do we want to use that? Because one might view the version of the law here as you know, in need of some changes. So, you know, do you want to just have that discussion next week after the public hearing and hear more? Or, because if we're planning on having a vote, I think we're going to need to talk about some of these things and maybe make some changes pursuant to with park superintendents and other people's suggestions. So this is a question about process. Are we expecting to have a vote next week or have further review?
Well, for me, I think that I spoke with Eric tonight, and it's still a work in progress. Tom, who's done a lot of work on it, is not here, so I would think that we would put this off until next week, listen to what happens, and then talk about it after that. I don't think there's any great rush.
Dennis, do you have feelings about that?
I get your point about, you know, I've read some of the emails that have come in, some of the people, and some of them are absurd from my point of view, but it's a thing where we'll discuss it next week, take it into account, and if we have unanimity or close to that, I think there'll be a vote.
So I
If
guess,
there's some major change that needs to be made,
right,
and this goes back to our town attorney, that it's a significant change, then we may have to re-advertise and, adjourn the public hearing to a later date. So it depends on what the changes are.
all right. I know you've had a chance to see some of the stuff Eric has sent around and registered your kind of provisional approval of that. It's substantially different, has more details than what we have here. So I anticipate having a good conversation about that, hearing more comments, and then maybe working up a final version for approval afterwards. I'm guessing, rather than doing it on the fly tomorrow night. The number 5 is, there's a number of great events happening in Orangetown that we should be cognizant of, the town is supporting, and they've submitted applications for the use of the showmobile and access to supplies from the highway department. So there's the music festival on June 24th. I'll just review these quickly if there's any questions for our park superintendent. There's the music series in Nyack. There's a couple other events further on down here. Number 9 is a 5K run in Pearl River. I'm just looking for events. There's a Relay for Life, which is number 11. Number 12 is a Liam Trainer 5K run coming out of Tappan Zee High School. There's the Orangeburg Fire Association's Carnival. That's number 13. So those are the main events in this agenda. Any questions or concerns related to those?
No.
Hearing none. The next item would be number 7, which is awarding the contract for summer camp transportation to the Chestnut Ridge Transportation Company. That's from the Parks Department. Any questions about that?
No.
Seeing none. Number 8 is the accepting with regret the resignation and retirement of Sergeant Joseph Grunsky and thanking him for his many years of service from the police department. Let's see. Number 10 is a police department purchase of communications equipment and related products, training and installation services. And that's outlined there. Number 11 and 12, we just talked about their special events, 13, 14. 15 is certificates of registration for sewer work, American Minuteman Sewer and Drain, Inc. in New City. Number 16 is about grants, which I'd like to have a bit of discussion of. And also, the next couple of items are finance related, and we'll have Jeff come to the podium for that. As we do at least a couple of times a year, we hire Sylvia Welch to work with our departments to do grant applications for funding. I have 3 grants which she's recommending that we apply for, and each of them is described here. I want to thank my assistant, Vicky Caramonte, as well as the Highway Department, Stefan Muno and Jim Dean, and the Parks Department for providing feedback and helping to kind of figure out what kind of application we should be looking at. And I want to talk a little bit about the Parks one, but starting with the first one, A is an item we've applied for before, and what it essentially is when the Highway Department washes their trucks of the salt during the winter, it drains out, and the grant would pay for an apparatus to collect that salty water and recycle it into the salt brine system, which is then used to reapply to roads. So it's a way of making efficient use of salt, even more efficient use of it, while keeping the trucks lasting a long time by getting the salt off of them. And it also addresses water pollution issues that come from that salty water draining off the highway yard into the Sparkill Creek. So this is a grant we've applied for before, and it's worth about $350,000. As a general rule, the town portion, every grant has, a town portion is in-kind work. And so the work that the Highway Department would do administering the grant working to install it, if the project is funded, is the part that the town contributes in terms of the value of the project. So that goes for virtually all the grants we apply for the most part. Any questions about that one? Is that clear?
Said we applied for it before. Is this-
We applied for it and were denied, but, we got to take another shot at it. It's always uncertain whether you get the funding, but we do have a case to make, especially given the proximity to Sparkill Creek and its listing as a priority water body by the state. This is a project that might be funded. So that's that one. Any other questions about that? No. The second one is, this is following on, we succeeded in getting $50,000 for an engineering study of the section of the Sparkill Creek that runs between Mountain View Avenue and Innovation Plastics heading south there. There's frequent flooding there because of the problems with the culverts and the bridge. And so following on that design, which will take place, we are applying for funding to actually do a project that would both improve the stream there, improve the culverts, and demolish and remove a derelict structure which is sitting right on the banks of the Sparkill Creek. I don't know how many people have noticed driving down Route 303 on the right-hand side there. There's some old derelict structure that's sitting there. Jim Dean probably knows the history of it, but in any case, it needs to be removed. It's an impediment to the stream. So that's that one. Any questions about that? Nope. Nope. And C is a grant that I want to apply for only if we get further clarification of what kinds of strings are attached to parks funding. In the context of our conversations around park management and policies related to charging fees and things like that, and given that we're in a workshop mode, I want to talk about this, but I want to get more clarity about that. This is funding, there's a maximum of $50,000 available to essentially do park design. And this is because we have a longstanding concept of a waterfront park at Lake Tapan on the Rockland Hospital property. And without some work going into the design, we don't really know how to work with the developers of the development sites, whether it's Lot 1 or the core area or ultimately over by the former Children's Hospital. We need to have some sense of what kind of trail system, parking, picnic tables, and perhaps some fishing decks and other kinds of facilities that we want to see there. And having a design would kind of take us towards the point where we would have a budget and a kind of a sense of how to raise money to actually pay for the thing. So that's what this is for. And again, to me anyway, it needs to be further reviewed in terms of the funding source. We've been talking a lot internally lately about how different kinds of funding streams for the park system can come with restrictions on whether you can have a fee policy or a prioritizing residency type policy. And we've gotten some information that certainly suggests that some kinds of funding do impose a restriction on that kind of policy, while others do not. And I think we need to find out a little more about this before we jump into it. But in any case, I do want to remind the board that it's important that we think about what kind of park we want to see down there, because I think that we're going to see some good development at Rockland Psych, and we need to be ready with some kind of a plan. Comments or questions about that?
Eric, are you looking for this grant?
Andy and I have had some meetings about the waterfront area. I know there's some interest in some of the other parcels of land privately, but this is that one strip that's around the reservoir. So, but in order to get any idea of what the actual costs of some of the things we're talking about, some of the facilities we're talking about putting in there, you would need, a company that does park design to come in and really guide us with that.
Before I vote on this next week, all right, in order for me to vote on it, I want to know what the scope of, what they're looking for.
Sure.
Or
Yep.
you're looking for.
Yeah, we have
all
a
right?
list of items. I can send that to you, absolutely.
One of the things we
And
did.
I am also concerned about strings attached, too.
Well, okay.
Yeah, no, we all are. And so partly it's effort that we need to do amongst the board and the Parks Department and the committee. Watson is here, he's on the Parks Committee, to just envision what kind of park we want. And that comes down to trying to calculate approximately, how many 1,000 feet of paved path, how many parking spaces, how many picnic tables, and those kinds of things. And kind of putting together a bit of a consensus around that, whether we're able to hire a designer, now or later. It's a kind of a fruitful conversation, Dennis, and I appreciate you engaging in that. I think that the town, should be considering in more practical ways, where the access points are for road, for paths, and we've discussed the idea. Alta Sports has made a proposal for Lot 1, but that backs up against other town land. What are the kind of connections or synergies there? There are other properties and adjacent lots with the same kind of question, whether it's Orangetown Little League or the Gaelic Athletic Association. So that's the idea. And it's helpful to kind of flesh out this pitch. Whether we pitch it to these guys or pitch it to someone else, I think we do need to get that design expertise in there.
Okay, just so I understand, you said that you were holding off on that third?
Well, I've got
for
it
a
there
while?
for the purposes of discussion, but I want to find out more about this whole question. We've seen some new
So right
information.
now, we're looking at the first two?
Yeah,
and
definitely the
this
first
one's
two.
still going to be investigated?
Correct.
Okay.
Thanks for the clarification. Okay, so that's that. Number 17 is, thank you, Eric. This is a matter related to our town independent audit, which is, Jeff will update us on. They should be making a presentation to the town board sometime soon. And this relates to the ongoing concern about how to handle the $6 million in accumulated deficit by the 2 golf courses. Of course, we're in a better position now that we have applied golf in there. We're making more money. And Jeff will present some ideas kind of coming out of the auditors saying they need to see a more specific plan for repaying that debt. And Jeff has worked with them to come up with an acceptable plan, which needs the town board's review. Jeff?
Yeah, essentially the audit is done, all the numbers are done. The last thing that the auditors are requiring is really a more concrete plan of how the town is going to repay the advances to the 2 golf courses. And over the years, it's been a total of $6 million. And I had discussions with them, well, the town has already taken action. It has put under private management both of the golf courses. And we expect that the golf courses cumulatively will be cash flow positive if you take out the non-cash events like the depreciation and amortization and the OPEB. So on a cash basis, we expect the 2 golf courses together to be a net $400,000 positive. That
Just to
would-
clarify, Broadacres is expected,
to have to continue to take about 100,000,
Right.
125,000 in additional advances, while Blue Hill is expected to be able to pay back some of the prior advances in the 500,000 plus range.
right?
And so, so what I've spoken with the auditors about, and I have a draft letter in there that you can peruse, and that they've basically agreed with. We're still going back and forth a little bit on the language and the technicalities of it, but essentially over a 20-year period, pay back, the whole $6 million to the general fund, which would be basically agreeing to $300,000 per year. Now, if the golf courses do as anticipated, this will be able to come directly out of Blue Hill, certainly, and then Broadacres. We think that we can do a due to, due from Blue Hill or Broadacres to Blue Hill, so then it's not a loan from the general fund and keeps everything separate. But those are some of the technicalities that we're trying to work out. But the bottom line is we have to have this concrete plan signed by the supervisor before they'll issue our final audit, which is due by June 30th. So, and so the draft of the letter I have there, they've basically agreed to in principle, and we're just tightening up some of the accounting issues with that.
And in conversation, you said that the plan that we start with does not necessarily have to be the one that we end with?
That is certainly correct. We can change it based on how the golf courses do. If we see that they're paying it back, quicker, we're going to pay it back quicker. But, if not, then, if we see that this isn't working and we're still running in a deficit, we'll have to create a budget line, for that. So, budget for it next year and then pay it back that way. So that's the other option. But since we have privatized the golf courses, and we do expect them to be able to start paying back, particularly Blue Hill, we think this is a good first step, and we can reevaluate it after the results come in at the end of this year.
Is one of the reasons that Blue Hill is going to be in the black this year is because the debt service is less this year than last year?
It certainly is. 200,000 less, give or take, and 200,000 less again from the year before, so 400 over 2 years. And the depreciation and amortization also drops about 100,000. So
I just want to get it clear for Mr. Knight here in front of me. The other thing is, in terms of repaying, if you want to think of a loan or whatever, this had to do with our enterprise funding, I guess, for if that's the right term, for the golf course in the past. And that $6 million is in fund balance. That's where it is. It's just that it's designated for
correct.
the golf course, and it doesn't give us the flexibility to use it, all right? All right. And this has been looked at a lot back and forth over the last 16 years that I've been here, in terms of how should this be addressed. And I agree with the fact that we need to change how we're doing business here, so
Yeah.
I'll support it.
The other option that you could do is to write it all off at once. But
Yeah,
again,
that's-
that's a major hit. It was
Yeah, with $6
accumulated
million.
over many years. It should be
Yeah.
paid back over many years is how I view it.
Yeah, kiss your cap goodbye, too. So, all right, thank you.
Okay?
Jeff, while you're up there, and I also want to mention, I forgot earlier, but in terms of the grant writing and working with the departments on capital projects, Deputy Supervisor Alan Riff is also participating in that. And that brings me to our next topic, where he and I and Jeff and all the department heads will be working together to present the town with a budget for 2017 and for review by the town board and ultimately amendment and approval. And each year we lay out a schedule that's based on state law and the deadlines that exist under state law. And if you'll just review that, item 18, it goes from obtaining capital budgets and operational budgets from town department heads through the presentation of the supervisor's budget on September 27th, and ultimately the final budget being due by November 20th, hopefully finished and approved before then.
Well, we have it scheduled to be done by November 1st, which is our last full town board meeting.
Right.
I just put in there November 20th as the state's drop dead deadline, but we only have a workshop after that. So we're really shooting for November 1st.
We might, this is a workshop and this is a schedule, and I don't think, the town board hasn't really had a chance to look at it yet. So like anything else on the agenda, it should be viewed as somewhat provisional, but ultimately, November 20th is the drop dead deadline for the town budget, and I'm sure that whether we finish it on the 1st or the 8th or something like that, it'll be okay. So that's the provisional schedule. We will be also working to schedule, capital facilities tours, to give people a chance to look at the heavy equipment and the buildings and other items. And in other ways, providing information both to the public and to the town council about what the town's needs are for each department and how we can best manage things, as always, efficiently and under the tax cap which of course will be, I guess, at about 0 or something in terms of
0.13.
the allowable increase in the levy under the tax cap in the coming year. So prepare yourselves. We're about to launch into the budget process. Any questions or comments about the budget process before we move on to the next thing? Okay. Number 19, Jeff, if you could just address this quickly. I think this came out of your office.
Sure. What this is there was a new requirement by the federal government with the Affordable Care Act that the town and all municipalities, all employers have to provide 1095Cs, which is basically proof of insurance. It's on the level of work required for us as preparing W-2s for all of the employees. So this was a very major undertaking. We took it on ourselves. We did it ourselves. Many towns hired that out, but we do want to have a check. This is the first time they've implemented the program. There are heavy fines if it's done incorrectly. So we just want to have a double check to make sure that we did everything right. And then after this year, we shouldn't need to do this again. But it's $2,500. I think it's well worth it considering if we did have any errors, the fines are going to greatly exceed that.
Questions, concerns?
Those fines are this year?
We already did it for 2015. That's
No, I
what they're
know,
going to
but-
review. So the fines would be issued if and whenever they find them.
Yeah, because my understanding were the fines are not applicable to 2016.
I'm not sure on that, Dennis. I thought they were.
Well, when you're doing 2016, okay, you're really reporting 2015, so that's what I'm talking about.
Right.
Weren't they sent out?
Oh, they were sent out. They were done. This is going to be reviewed. I mean, we can always make corrections. Again, we did it. We think we did everything properly, but since this is the first time for everybody, and this is not them doing it, this is essentially like an audit of how we did it to make sure that we did it right, and fully expect that we did. But since this is a new law by the federal government and new procedures completely, and you can't really get anyone on the phone to give you a straight answer, for $2,500, I think it's worth it to make sure that we're on the right path, which we believe we are. We're doing it right, and then next year, we just continue doing it the way we're doing it because we've already been verified that we are doing it right.
All right, thank you.
The last item on our printed agenda, barring any further items for new business, is number 20, which is the resignation retirement, accepting with regret the resignation of Maureen McGrath, who has run the administration of the court system for many years. And we thank her and look forward to working with the town board and our director of personnel to find a substitute and make some progress towards filling her shoes. Are there any other items that you guys want to discuss tonight? No? Town attorney, anything? Department heads? Joe, you all right? Okay. All right. Well, then, seeing no further new business, I'll make a motion to adjourn this meeting. Do I have a second? From Batari, all in favor say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Have a good night.